Walgreens. Have you really wondered about the crazy story behind Walgreens, the very pharmacy chain that has about 8 million customers on a daily? Did you know that all it took was one accident? An accident where a man cut off a third of his middle finger, which led to the innovation of this massive chain around the country. Well, by now you should know that this is not just any regular founding story. The credit goes to Charles Rudolph Walgreen, the man behind this fascinating story of a neighborhood drugstore. Founded in 1901 and measuring just 50 feet by 20 feet, Walgreens grew to beat every existing pharmacy in the States, earning its title as one of the most respected American corporations. Charles Walgreen was born to Swedish immigrants in 1873 in Knoxville, before moving to Galesburg, Illinois in 1887 when he was really young. He attended Dixon Business College and worked as a bookkeeper for a while. Right after that, he worked in a shoe factory there, but soon became interested in pharmacology. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you see this, Charles was in an industrial accident that cost him a part of his finger on his left hand. And the doctor who treated him persuaded him to become a druggist's apprentice. But he didn't really give up. He took it sportively. This is the story that inspired it all. If it hadn't been for this accident, he may never have become a pharmacist and later a phenomenally successful business owner and entrepreneur. Going back to the story, Charles remained in that company until the age of 20. So during this time, his interest in this field grew so much that he was ready to relocate to Chicago with just $20 that he had borrowed from his sister Clementine in 1893. While he stayed in Chicago, this boy went all out. He worked in drugstores and studied pharmacy in his free time. He tried to do as much as he could. He never stopped hustling and believed that someday he will be able to make it in life. He had really hard times, which he went through alone. There were times when Charles had financial trouble. You wouldn't believe this, but there was a time when he only had 5 cents to his name and literally had to survive with just that. But instead of desperately counting pennies, he went out and bought a 2-cent newspaper and threw the remainder in the Chicago River in hopes that it would bring him good luck. Well, eventually luck did favor him. But I would say it was more of hard work. I really wonder how he could resist all his urges and be this positive even during such sucky times.
Was it as easy as it looked?
No, sir. No, sir, it wasn't.
So things did get better and changed his life completely. Charles managed to become a registered pharmacist in 1897. He was also patriotic and wanted to do his duty towards his country. So, he enlisted and served during the Spanish-American War. We all might not be so determined and stuck to our goals as this young man, because just as he completed his term and returned to the United States, he again worked in Chicago as a pharmacist to keep his passion fueled. That's a lot of commitment to one's dream. Now, one crazy yet smart thing Charles did was to buy his first store in 1901 using up all the money he had saved. He gambled with money by investing so much without the assurance of a crazy successful business. But things did turn out to be in his favor. He was able to establish C.R. Walgreen Company in 1909 with the little that he had. He didn't stop there. By 1916, he owned 9 drugstores, which he incorporated as Walgreen Co. Walgreens was one of the first chains to carry non-pharmaceuticals as a mainstay of the store's retail selection. The rapid expansion has often been attributed to Charles's policy of reinvesting a large part of the earnings back into the business. This was a trick that favored him for many years, and I'm pretty sure that off late, every business uses his idea. Initially, according to Walgreen's history, there wasn't much to distinguish his store from any other drugstore in Chicago, at least not at first. If you ever passed by his store back then, you probably wouldn't even notice that the store had changed hands, unless you looked up at the small gold-lettered sign over the doorway saying C.R. Walgreen R.P.H. Charles attempted to distinguish his stores from other drugstores of the day. He wanted to make things fancy so that it would stand out. So, he installed eye-catching displays and attractively merchandised windows. A direct departure from the boring, lifeless stores people had become accustomed to. It wasn't just this. Another first was to make his own line of drug products, which enabled him to ensure the highest quality at a low price. By now, we should have understood that Charles wasn't the ordinary kind, and he always wanted to do things differently. He did not really like how drugstores functioned and believed that the traditional chains had become outdated and that consumers wanted more. He was a really innovative person and kept thinking of different ways to engage with his customers and provide better service. He even went as far as to popularize the lunch counter by connecting a soda fountain. The really popular malted milk as a fountain item was first introduced in one of his stores in 1922 and really sparked interest in his customers when they came to purchase things that weren't even relevant to their needs. The fountain came about when he leased an adjacent empty building, cut an arc through it to install a fountain against the far wall. Now, the idea took so much time to construct that in the meantime, Charles even made his own brand of ice cream, which was a huge boost for sales, especially in the hot months. With so much business pouring in during the summer, Charles wondered what he would do when the cold winter months set in. Again, his creative brain didn't fail. Charles came up with the idea to sell hot soup and sandwiches, which kept the room active and profitable all year round. The fountain, of course, was the main attraction for customers, as were the milkshakes. Customers stood 3 and 4 deep around the soda fountain to buy the double rich chocolate malted milk, which was thickened with homemade ice cream and flavored by bittersweet chocolate, according to Walgreens history. Being the ambitious person that he was, Charles set out to make better products than anybody else and to sell them at a cheaper price. As he built his chain, which became a household word in Chicago during the 1920s, he was nothing but determined, and this attitude of his really helped him, even through the Depression, to manage and keep his empire afloat. I really wonder whether he had the right kind of support and help that he needed to get through this. Surprisingly, in 1933, he boosted his advertising budget to $1 million, and for a time, the stock paid a dividend. The same year, he helped celebrate Chicago's spectacular Century of Progress by opening 4 stores on the fairgrounds, all experimenting with advanced fixture designs, new lighting techniques, and colors, ideas that helped modernize the drugstore layout and design. Charles really liked to keep it clean and well lit, and this was a contrast to the typical dark, dingy store of the turn of the century. Walgreen opened the first of what has often been referred to as the super drugstores in 1934 in Tampa, Florida. It has been described as the first of the modern open stores with the merchandise taken out of the traditional showcases and placed on open display counters where customers could see, touch, and buy it. This company was really close to Charles's heart. He took care of it like he would his own child, making sure to do everything possible to keep it going. He even brought his son into the business early on to ensure that the legacy would continue, and that was a really smart move because in 1929, Walgreen Jr. was assisting in the procurement of branch warehouses and manufacturing plants throughout the country, which really helped the company to take one step up in the game. And from 1930 to 1932, he was assistant to the director of purchasing and in charge of all sundries buying. Much like his father, Jr. overachieved and succeeded. He developed many new lines of merchandise. By the time of Charles's death, there were 494 stores in 215 cities in 37 states, with about 12,000 employees. Earnings grew from $439,110 in 1924 to $2.9 million in 1939, and the net worth grew from $85,700 in 1916 to $24.2 million in 1939. The company opened a non-profit 6,000-foot drugstore in the Pentagon, which was such a kind thing to do. All the profits from the store went to the Pentagon Post Restaurant Council, which supervised food service in the complex. The store operated into the 1980s. Walgreens was always exceptional. They had the first intercom computers installed in 5 Walgreen pharmacies in Des Moines, Iowa in 1981, which was the initial step toward making Walgreens the first drugstore chain to connect all its pharmacy departments via satellite. This really made a huge difference in the branding, making it extremely efficient. Last year, Walgreens filled 190 million prescriptions, which also included immunizations, on average every 30 days. That's about 3 pills each for every man, woman, and child living in the United States. Walgreens have always been known for its convenient and easy service. They still strive hard every day to keep up with the competition and serve their purpose. This story is definitely an inspiring one and is probably going to keep you thinking about how you want to make things more productive for yourself. So I'd suggest get the job done which you've been procrastinating about for days, and hustle harder today, keeping Charles in mind for your inspiration. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons. It does wonders for the YouTube algorithm, so more people can see our videos and so that you can be notified when we launch our next video. We try and put out at least one new one per week, and as you can imagine, the research and editing alone of these type of videos takes us close to 18 hours. So we would really appreciate it if you could also check out our Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can support our work. We produce over 12 videos per month, so that is literally 8 cents per video. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at our next unmasking.